Hello and welcome back to another draft video. This is part 2 of the top linebackers. If your team needs a linebacker, this is the year. This class is absolutely stacked. I like it at the top, I like it in the middle and in the later rounds. So if your team needs a linebacker, hopefully they are looking to the draft. So today I'm going to be going over my number 9 through 15. If you want to see my 1 through 8, I have that on my channel. It is in the NFL draft playlist that you can see, as well as all of the other positions. So we're going to get into these things, but just a quick reminder of my top 8. Number 1, I have Arvell Reese. Number 2, Sonny Styles. Those two are neck and neck. I don't care which one you have as number 1. They are just slightly different. Arvell Reese more of an edge rusher. Sonny Styles more of a traditional off-ball. I think they're both fantastic, and you should just pick whichever of those more positional needs that you have. After that, CJ Allen, Jake Golday, Jacob Rodriguez, Kyle Lewis, and then Josiah Trotter and Anthony Hill. So after that, getting into number 9, we have a player that not gonna lie, I was higher on him going into the year, and he didn't quite live up to my expectations, but there is a lot to be excited about. Deontay Lawson from Alabama, number 0, 6'2", 228 pounds. He was a 4-star recruit from Alabama, started out as a special teams player, as a redshirt freshman in 2022, worked his way into a rotational role, and then in 2023, he missed 3 games with an ankle injury, but he still put up 67 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss. And then in 2024, he became a team captain, always a really good sign. Had a great year, and then he tore his ACL, which isn't great. That's 2 years with 2 lower body injuries, so a bit of an injury history there, a bit concerning. But this is a player with some serious power moving downhill. That's going to be his role. His pass rush overwhelms small blockers. He has some pass rush moves. He's good with his hands. He pushes running backs backwards so easily. He generates a lot of power through his legs. He seems to have pretty long arms. It helps him in coverage, has good range. He's smart. He's very much the director of the defense, and DeBoer always speaks highly of his leadership. And I think he has really good instincts in zone coverage. That's something I always appreciate, and he's in the right place at the right time to disrupt the play. He can read the quarterback, and, in the Rose Bowl, I thought he really shined against Indiana. He was a problem for Fernando Mendoza all day. His length isn't really ideal at the NFL level. He struggles to disengage from blockers, especially stronger offensive linemen. That was something I was hoping he would improve this year. And he's going to need to add some extra strength. He's going to need to add some extra weight to play in the NFL. That's the reality, but he can. And you'll find that that's a theme for a lot of these, slightly lower ranked guys. They just need to put on strength. They're just not pro ready yet. His tackling is solid. The angles he takes, I think he misjudges them a lot of the time, which isn't great at this level. He isn't decisive enough to get out ahead of it, and this is someone who's left a fair number of games early because of minor injuries as well. It's not just the 2 major injuries, which I have a hard time holding that kind of thing against a player, but a bunch of minor injuries, don't love. But he has serious special teams upside. That helps his case for being an early contributor. He could end up being a top 100 pick just because he plays smart, he plays fast, he's so violent. But you are weighing that against frequent injuries. So that, to me, makes his floor too low for him to be taken in the first 3 rounds. That's how I see it. I had hopes of him being a top 50 player. I just don't think I see it right now, which is unfortunate, but I wouldn't be shocked if in a few years people are wondering, whoa, how did they get him in the 4th round or whatever it is? But he's a reliable player in a lot of categories, and I don't think he's dominant in any one category. I still think teams are going to love how he runs downhill and plays fast and violent. A lot to be excited about if your team picks Deontay Lawson. Speaking of players that I thought I would be higher on, because of how people talk about this player, I thought that this could be someone we're looking at as a top 50 player. And I understand I'm a lot lower on him than others, and I'll get into why. But Harold Perkins Jr. from LSU, he's number 7, 6'1", 233 pounds. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school as a freshman back in 2022. He got 13 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. That's insane numbers for a freshman. Like, if he wasn't a freshman and those were his numbers, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's decent for an NFL prospect. But for a freshman, that's awesome. He was more of an edge rusher at the time, but they later moved him to more of an off-ball role where he stayed since. 2024, he tore his ACL, bit of an injury history, but he still has recovered and looks explosive and athletic since then, so I'm not too worried. I think that was probably a contributor to his 2025 production dip, but he still looks like he is on track with where he should be in that regard. He has great speed, great lateral movement, and that helps him cover tight ends and occasionally slot receivers really well. He's a bit undersized, but I think he's built to be kind of a hybrid player who can play a lot of different roles. He'll be likely seen as a will linebacker who lines up on the edge situationally. Admittedly, at times he looks kind of lost in coverage. He might react to plays a little bit late, but he's a good tackler. He tackles high, which could be a bit of a problem in the NFL where running backs are heavier and just harder to bring down. But I think he has a good foundation, and that's something that can be improved. And I totally see why people are really high on him. I have an issue with him, though. I think, there were times when his effort was questionable. And I remember a play, I don't remember what game it was, but a running back cuts back by the end zone, and if Perkins had hustled, he would have been there to stop it, or at least, maybe have a chance to punch the ball out, at least get a body on him before he scored. But instead, he was several steps away, and the running back scores a touchdown. I know that he's a good pass rusher. He does a good job finding lanes. He can close the gap with the quarterback because he has the speed to do that. But there was a moment in the game versus Texas A&M where he takes too long to react to the running back. He misses him, but he doesn't go to the ground. Like, he could still chase after him, and he doesn't. It was kind of like, I don't really like that, but is what it is. And then I kept watching the tape, and then that pattern kept jumping out, which I didn't love. So I'm curious if any of you have seen that pattern as well. If there's any LSU fans, let me know if that's something that you've seen, because that's disappointing. I think you can get away with that as an edge rusher, though it's not ideal. You can get away with that as a lineman. As a linebacker, that really can't be a quality. Like, hustle really is how you make plays in the NFL as a linebacker, and there are too many running backs who can break tackles for you to not have the quality of always being where the ball is. So the tape was pretty rough with that regard, and without that flaw, I would honestly probably have him top 6, top 7 in this list, but I can't justify putting him before top 10 because that's just too concerning to me. This isn't someone I see as a top 100 player in a draft with so many good linebackers. But again, some team might be willing to overlook that, or maybe in the interview that's, they get a different impression. Maybe he was injured during the season and that can explain, like there could be explanations for it, but to me on the tape, I saw a lack of hustle, and I'm just not okay with that at this position. Frankly, any position, I would not want that kind of culture on my team, but, these NFL coaches are going to have a chance to get to know him a little better, so they might be a little higher on him than I am. Next up, we have Jaishawn Barham, Michigan #1, 6'3", 243 pounds. He started his career at Maryland back in 2022 before transferring to Michigan in 24. So lots of Big Ten experience, and he established himself in the Big Ten as a reliable run stopper. And he was used more as an edge rusher this year. I think Michigan just needed more juice from that room. He got 4 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, only 21 tackles. He came into the year being seen as a top 75 prospect. He dropped out of that range. It seems like, maybe he can climb back up as, there's going to be a run on edge rushers, and people see him as sort of a hybrid outside linebacker, edge rusher kind of player. He has a strong frame, violent hands, great instincts. He anticipates blocks, screens, misdirections. That's very important as a run stopper. And Barham has shown that he's versatile. He can run the passer. He can move backwards. I like how he can flip his hips in coverage. Great burst, looks good in zone coverage, and I think his intelligence is really what positions him as one of the more balanced linebackers in this class. I think with most of these guys, I go, yeah, he's not much of a run stopper, but he's really good in coverage, or, not great in coverage, but in those short yardage situations, he's your run stopper. This is someone I think can operate in both situations. He hits quarterbacks hard, does a good job tackling in space. He's not over aggressive, just kind of a rare quality for linebackers who rush the passer. Quarterbacks have a hard time getting out in front of him. I remember that the New Mexico quarterback was feeling his hit for days. Same with Central Michigan. Like, there were just quarterbacks being put on notice early in the game from Barham, which was great to see. He has patience, but he also has an explosive quality to him. Makes him hard to fool. He isn't going to be over aggressive behind the line. He waits till he knows that he's not going to lose contain. He has that discipline. Then he explodes forward for a tackle for loss. He had a great rep of that in the second half against Nebraska. It was really good to see that level of discipline. A lot of the time you get players like this who are so over aggressive because they're so excited. But that's not him. And he probably didn't make enough of an impact to go day 2. There's a chance he does, but I think there's a lot to be excited about him. I think he is on an upward trajectory. He's smart, violent defender. He can read a blocking scheme really well. And I think he plays fast with great instincts. I'm a big fan of Barham. After him, not going to lie, I don't know how to say his name. Bryce Boetcher, I'm going to go with. Oregon, number 28, 6'1", 227. I'm an Oregon fan, so he's been on my radar. Interestingly, he came to Oregon as a baseball player. He was a center fielder, came out of high school as a shortstop, pretty classic trajectory for center fielders. He was there for his defense. He was hitting in the 100s in terms of his batting average as a freshman. In 2022, he actually walked onto the football team as a DB, became a linebacker. Interestingly, his hitting picked up in 2024, and he ended up with a 276 batting average, 12 home runs. And as a center fielder, what I remember about him is he was always robbing home runs. Every time someone robbed a home run, it was him. That was him in the highlights, throwing runners out at home. Great arm. He had a cannon, and he never hit his cuts, and it always bothered me because that's what center fielders with a cannon do. But he was actually drafted by the Astros in the 13th round, which that's not as bad as it sounds in baseball. He decided to continue with football and return to Oregon instead. He added some weight and really established his role in the football team. He was awarded a trophy for being the best walk-on in the country, and for good reason. He has great awareness, great instincts. He's always in the right place at the right time, kind of a center fielder quality. Oregon ran a pretty advanced defense, and he never seemed to miss his assignment. If he got beat, it was because he got beat physically, not because he didn't know what was going on, which I think is so important for translating your game to the NFL. I like his coverage in the intermediate passing game. I think we saw at the Senior Bowl that, maybe he won't be the guy to go man-to-man with a shiftier tight end down the field, but in short yardage situations, he was really solid. In intermediate situations, he was solid. His speed isn't elite, but he is athletic. He can understand routes well. He plays hard. He ends up in frame on almost every play, no matter where on the field the ball is an observation I had watching all the Oregon tape. He's shifty enough that he can dodge slower guards and centers to avoid blocks. Not the best pass rusher. All he can do is really shoot the gap, but it kind of shows his inexperience at linebacker. But his inexperience at linebacker combined with his intelligence suggests to me that he's on a good trajectory. I like the direction he's going. He got to play running back for one play against USC, went a few yards for a touchdown. He's a good tackler. He's technically sound, very smart. He's an immediate core special teams player, and I think he has immediate rushing down impact at the linebacker position. Hard worker, great teammate, plays hard. I think he's a day 3 selection, but I would not be shocked if in a few years he has evolved into a full-time starter for a team. I really believe in him. I just think he's inexperienced and he needs time. Next up, Taurean York, Texas A&M, number 21, 5'10" and 230 pounds. So a smaller guy, and he has I believe he has shortest arms of this class in the draft. 3-star recruit from Texas, track background, fast runner, started as a true freshman, pretty rare for the linebacker position. He rarely misses tackles despite having short arms. Like I said, he has such good core strength and such good technical refinement on tackling. He is the player on defense who lines up all of his teammates because he understands what he sees before the snap like nobody else. Football IQ is through the roof. He's a leader of the defense. Big fan of this guy, and I understand other people are probably higher on him than I am. I think he navigates blocking schemes really well, a lot of discipline, solid coverage. He moves backwards, he flips his hips. I think he would be great in systems that depend a lot on simulated pressures. And I think, rushing the passer on long passing downs is a role he could play. He is just so small. He's so small, has such short arms. I don't know that he can be depended on to be more than a rotational and special teams player. And that never feels like a big deal in college. But, you go to the pro level and you're going up against monsters. He gets washed out in the run game so easily. At some team that wants a fast up front guy, utility sort of player who can play as a rotational special teams kind of player, they'll know that they get someone who's smart, who's dependable. Maybe he can put on a significant amount of weight. I don't think that's something he's really done in college, so he probably has a lot of room for growth there. But to me, this is a 5th or 6th round kind of guy. I expect other people will have higher grades than me just because he's fast and smart, and it's hard to find linebackers you feel like whose intelligence is going to translate right away. I think his intelligence would. I don't know that his technical soundness can overcome some of the physical limitations, but, he can be a core special teams player. That should increase his stock. And, teams are still figuring out the new kickoff play. They want sound tacklers, and I think that's something he can be. After that, we have Aiden Fischer from Indiana, number 4, 6'1", 231 pounds. He started at James Madison as an unranked freshman, became a contributor his sophomore year, and then he followed Curt Cignetti to Indiana. He finished his junior year with 108 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. It wouldn't shock me if some of you are higher on him than I am. This year, he actually became the first All-American linebacker Indiana has ever had. He finished the year with only 97 tackles, but 4.5 sacks, 10.5 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions. That Indiana defense was just moving so soundly, and he performed disproportionately well in the playoffs on the way to the Natty. So I think that's really why people are high on him. I look at the general tape, I'm not super impressed, but he plays well in big moments, and he was a part of that Indiana defense that got them to the championship. And he has consistently gotten better with every year. So he's on the right trajectory. He knows how to tackle, but he's a smaller guy, plays really hard, plays fast, sometimes to a fault. He can be over aggressive, but he can rush the passer reasonably well. He can shed blocks of running backs and tight ends. He's not going to be a good matchup with guards who get to the next level, just like with every small linebacker. And, strong run defense against Miami in the Natty, as well as against Oregon, who has one of the better offenses in football, a lot of the better blockers in football. His real value, though, I think, is he knows what's going to happen before it does. Indiana's defense is so good with film study. That is something you can trust about every player coming from that side of the ball this year. And Fischer was always ready for a team's bread and butter plays. Whatever the team's tendencies were, you got the impression that he knew those per down and distance, per personnel out there. And he was always directing his teammates and getting everyone in the right position. And it paid off. His athleticism, it's not great. He's too small to be the real anchor of an NFL defense. And he may start as a rotational player, but he brings a lot of experience as a linebacker, as a core special teams player. And I think he has what it takes to have a long NFL career. I think he has a lot of work to do and strength to add if he is going to be a 3-down starter kind of player. I think that'll take some years, but there are going to be teams that believe in his developmental potential, and I hope they do. So for me, this is a 6th-round grade, but some of these guys are going to make. And the last player to make my rankings is Lander Barton out of Utah. He's number 8, 6'5", 236 pounds. Barton made an immediate impact as a freshman. He appeared in every game that year, got 8 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, and his sophomore year, he got 2 interceptions, a forced fumble, then he was injured for the year, unfortunately. Interestingly, he was also kind of a tight end this year, only 6 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown against BYU. That doesn't sound like much, but it does show a level of trust in him, in his ball skills, and his coordination. Most guys who start on defense, if they get offensive reps, it's as a blocker or as a running back, because most defensive players don't have the ball skills, otherwise they'd be offensive players. And so I think it shows a lot of trust in him in that regard. And one of the ways that I think that translates is his knack for being in the right place at the right time to get interceptions and disrupt passes. He is a ball hawk. He is very fast, very fluid in his hips. He can match routes very well. He definitely needs to put on some weight, and that's why I have him so low on this list. He's technically sound in terms of stacking and shedding, but he's often not successful just because he's so much smaller and weaker than the guy he's going against. His tackling could use a little bit of work. He tackles too high, and he depends on hitting guys hard rather than wrapping them up. And he does play his best in big games, and that's exactly what you want. You got to give him credit for that. He's a smart player in the right place at the right time. Like I said, that is his strength, and that translates. Not as effective in the run game as you'd like. So this is, to me, more of a developmental prospect. He can improve as he gets bigger and stronger, maybe rotational in a weaker linebacker room on passing downs in coverage. This is a day 3 pick that in a few years could turn into a solid starter. Like every other linebacker in this range, could be a special teams contributor, and he could be the kind of the player that makes a difference in that regard just because he's smart. He will study the film. He will know the team's tendencies. I think that's relevant for the new kickoff rules. But for me, I would not be comfortable taking him ahead of the 5th round. And realistically, his grade's a little later than that. I just understand that whatever grade you give them doesn't mean they're a bad pick if they're picked later or if they're picked sooner. I mean, it's just you know, sometimes there's a run on a position, and if you want a guy at all, you have to take him early. He could be someone who ends up contributing if a room is, you know, not having the depth that you would like. Now, after that, I do have a few honorable mentions that I want to talk about very briefly, because I know you guys will be asking about them. Red Murdoch from Buffalo. I think he's a great tackler. He's a great run defender, good gap discipline. I think he plays really smart. I just think he really struggles to move backwards. He struggles to change direction. His, you know, that flip in the hips is really slow. Easy mismatch, I think, for even average pass catching tight ends. And the effort is great, but the pass rushing is too unrefined to make an impact anytime soon. He can be rotational help, I think, especially in short yardage situations. So there is going to be a team, I think, that drafts him. I think he'll be the right fit somewhere. He's great at causing fumbles, so there's a lot of developmental upside with a patient team, but early on, this is a special teams type of player. Mason Reiger out of Wisconsin. He's super fast for the position. He's lighter than is ideal, very athletic. I think his potential is really as an edge rusher, and I don't know that Wisconsin, you know, really gave him a chance to shine in that regard. He has too many missed tackles, isn't strong enough to set the edge, and I think that's why he often didn't get those opportunities to line up on the line. But his pass rush could get him on a roster. You know, rotationally, I think as he gets bigger, he'll work on tackling, increase his pass rush moves. You know, at the right setting, I think he could develop into an effective, you know, maybe edge 3, edge 4 for those third and long situations. I just think he's too small to play an off-ball role, and he doesn't quite have the awareness that it takes to make up for it, because there are guys in my top 5 that I think are really small. You know, I think Jacob Rodriguez is too small, but his football IQ is off the charts, right? And I don't think you can say the same for Mason Reiger, but I think in a few years, he could surprise people if he puts on weight and stays fast and athletic. Then that's somebody, you know, that could make a big difference. If he doesn't, he might struggle to stay on a roster, and he might not be able to have a long career. But, you know, all of these players that I'm saying might not make it. Some of them always surprise you, right? There's always somebody who makes it. And I hope that, you know, all the guys who are drafted are able to stay on a roster. But, you know, if you need a linebacker, I do think in the first 4 rounds is where you're going to get somebody who can make a big impact. But these later guys are, I think, worth mentioning. So that's it for linebackers for me. Let me know who I missed. Obviously, there are guys who stand out at the Combine. Honestly, I feel that the Combine vindicates my selections. You know, I have heard I'm too high on Jacob Rodriguez. It's crazy to think Sonny Styles could be taken over Arvell Reese. If my team needed an off-ball linebacker, that's who I'd be taking. But this is a great class overall. If your team needs a linebacker, they have some great options. Thank you so much for watching. Shout out to my members who got this video and every draft video early. And soon I will be back to talk about tight ends and any other position that you guys would like. I'm going to revisit centers and guards because the second half of the season I think really shook up the list, which is very exciting. It's shaping up to be a really good offensive line class, and a lot of teams need offensive line. So thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you liked what you've seen. My name is Cecilia, and I will be back soon to talk more about the draft.